Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is the reason solution for the ant and the goblin riddle. Now, if you haven't seen the last video, I recommend you look at that, but if not, you can just sort of freeze here for a minute, give this a read, and we'll get right to it. In the next video, I'll do the mathematical solution, but this one won't really require any math. We're just going to use logic for the most part here and figure out whether this ant makes it or not. Now, most people don't root for the ant. They say this ant is too slow, he's too weak. All right, the goblin is the favorite, you know. So this is really a bit of an underdog story. I think maybe for that some of you cheered for the ant, but a lot of you probably just thought it was still impossible. But if you've seen any of the Rocky movies, I mean, what I learned from those is that pretty much anything is possible. After Rocky defeats Ivan Drago and brings peace, ends the Cold War. So I hope you're cheering for the ant. Now let's get right to it. These are the questions you want to ask yourself to start to understand what'll happen as the goblin takes off and the ant takes off in the other direction. The big question, will the ant always be at the far right end of the rubber band? Well, it's running away from the goblin, right? So I think this is pretty easy to answer. Let's look at what this rubber band would look like after 1 second. So we'll do something like 1 second later. And the goblin's going at 100 centimeters per second. So he's gone 100 centimeters after this second. So the rubber band would look something like this. And this would be 110 centimeters because it was initially 10 centimeters long. Okay, and our ant would have traveled, we have it going at 10 centimeters per second, it would be about here, around 100 centimeters, not exactly, but pretty close from the original starting point. And you can see the ant will not be right at the end. Maybe I'll, instead of making another goblin drawing, we can just have this green dot kind of as the goblin going this way, and you have the ant going to the left. So I think by this point you'd probably agree that the ant is not going to be at the very end, okay? Even if you think this ant is a loser and he can't do it, he's definitely away from the end a little bit, okay? He's going to keep getting farther from the goblin, you know, off into infinity. So with that answered, we have this next question. Is the speed of the entire rubber band 100 centimeters per second? What about the left end point, the midpoint? Well, I think it's pretty obvious for the left end point because it's fixed to the wall or to something. So its velocity is just 0. And the right end point always has a velocity of 100 centimeters per second. So in between the rubber band velocity, for example, maybe right at the middle, okay, this is going to be about half, well, not about, exactly half of the rubber band velocity at the end. Okay, and I just made a quick little diagram here, a graph. So this would be, on this left side, this would be the end point. And I have RB end over at the right, rubber band right end. So this is just a sort of a graphic representation of the rubber band's velocity at any time. Okay, of course the rubber band is getting bigger, but the velocity distribution will look, more or less identical. So what you need to realize, okay, is that as you're moving to the left on this rubber band, the rubber band, imagine that it's kind of a treadmill. Imagine you're the ant, okay? No one believed in you, but you just started running anyway because you wanted to get to the end. And beneath your feet, you can feel the rubber band moving kind of like a treadmill, okay? When you started out, it would feel like 100 centimeters per second beneath your feet. But as you got to even, here, it's going to be a little bit slower. So it's like, it's almost like a reward. Say you're at the gym and you start out running 15 miles per hour on the treadmill, and then your personal trainer turns the speed down a little bit, and then you're only at 14. But the more you run, the slower it gets beneath your feet. Okay, this For the ant, this isn't going to happen very quickly, but because it's happening, you can't argue that the ant wouldn't eventually make it, because the more it goes to the left, the slower the rubber band is beneath the ant's feet. So this will continue to happen until he's running the same speed as the rubber band. Okay, so then at that point in time, it's only going to happen really for an instant. The ant would it'd be like he was running on a treadmill and not moving at all. And then after that, he's going to start to be moving faster than the rubber band, and he starts to make progress back towards the wall. So if you believed in the ant, good for you, because the ant will make it to the wall. It has to. And there was a slight discrepancy in the last video. I said, I think in the problem statement I wrote 1 centimeter per second for the ant's velocity, but on the diagram I had 10. And so you might be wondering, well, surely it couldn't make it if it was going only 1 centimeter per second. And that's not true. It would make it. It would just take even longer, okay, than it already does. And we'll get into exactly how long it takes in the mathematical video. Okay, if you don't want to watch the math, you can just click in there and skip to the end. But the conclusion here is, since the ant is moving to the left, and as it goes to the left, okay, the velocity beneath its feet of the rubber band is decreasing. It will eventually make it to that end wall. Okay, it's going to make it to its little finish line, and it can, read ant books or do whatever ants do. It'll just take a really long time. And I guess there are other ways you could figure this out. One being that it would be kind of a funny question to ask, and then I come up with the next video and I say, nope, the ant didn't make it, so sorry, video over. But I hope you had a good time pondering this one and sort of figuring it out. And if it still doesn't make sense to you, you can watch this again. There's another video out there about the ant and the rubber rope. Maybe that would help. But just think about it, and I think once you understand it, you'll start to believe in the ant, even though it will take an impossibly large amount of time. And so yes, the ant would also make it back if the goblin could go at 100 kilometers per hour and the ant could only go at 1 millimeter per second towards the wall. It would still make it. It just takes a very long time, a harder time. It's a time that's longer than the existence of the universe or anything like that. A time that's pretty incomprehensible, but the logic still stands. As this ant moves to the left, the rubber band beneath its feet is getting slower. So eventually it'll overtake the rubber band and it beats the goblin. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, go ahead and click the like button and subscribe. And until next time, reckon smoothly.